Charlie Kirk has joined us. Charlie was with us at the RNCs, now with us at the DNCs, of course, with Turning Point USA.
Good job.
Okay, not Talking Point USA. Okay, that was what I said last time.
I thought it was hilarious.
It is kind of funny. Yeah. Charlie, I'll start actually real quick, Hannah. So obviously when we last talked, you guys were riding high. It looked like Trump was in great shape.
Yes.
Now it looks like Trump's spiraling, and I'm curious if you agree with that or not.
It's the best week ever, and now we got work to do. I wouldn't say spiraling, but I mean, it's probably a 50-50 race. Slight advantage Kamala, like slight advantage probably, because she has a lot of momentum, some vibes behind it. I think the momentum's slowing, but yeah, I mean, look, you have to live in reality, and we had a great convention, and it's, we've had a couple weeks where they switched out a candidate, and it's never happened before. And we're going to see like how real it is in the coming weeks. I think the race really starts on Labor Day. That's where it really kind of sets in. But yeah, I mean, I think we're going to see a race that's very tight to the end.
It seems like the Trump camp was kind of caught flat-footed by it. Like, I really did assume that the campaign is like a lot more strategic this time around compared to like 2016. 2016, it was just kind of like chaotic, but it worked. This time around, I'm actually a little surprised that you have this strategic campaign. The RNC went really well for Trump. I thought they were kind of preparing for the possibility of Biden dropping out and Kamala being the presumptive nominee. And it seems like he was kind of caught flat-footed. What are your thoughts on that?
There was some preparation. They should have listened to you guys. You guys were the most confident. When I came on the show, you're like, no chance Biden stays. And because you're actually in touch with the Democrat base, like I watch it on TV, so I'm not in touch with it at all. And you guys are like, no way he stays. And I was like, really? This late in the game? You're like, not going to happen. No way. And you were, of course, right. I mean, it's hard to prepare for something that's never happened before. And I will give the RNC credit. There was a fair amount of Kamala mentions, in the original written speech. Joe Biden wasn't even in the written speech for Donald Trump. But I think what caught us by surprise, and I would love your reaction to this, is she was generally appeared as an unlikable candidate. Would you agree with that, Anna? Like, as far as the media depiction, right? And now she's the most likable person, like Obama 3.0. That's what kind of caught us flat-footed. Not even the person, but all of a sudden, and I attribute it to a lot of pent-up Democrat base enthusiasm that was not allowed to be kind of let out of the volcano the last year and a half. And then all of a sudden, there was somebody that wasn't named Joe Biden, and she had a couple weeks to ride that wave. I don't know if I'm analyzing that correctly, but
yeah, I have a couple of thoughts, but go ahead.
Just want to say, I mean, that did surprise me because it did seem like a switch overnight in terms of the way voters felt about Kamala and the way the media felt about Kamala, right? Like it seemed to be more critical when she wasn't the presumptive Democratic nominee. But I really think the psychology behind it is, here you have an 81-year-old man who is definitely going to lose to Donald Trump, can barely put a sentence together. Every time we would watch him speak, I mean, my shoulders would tense up because it's going to be pretty bad.
Tonight,
and I think the relief is what led to the excitement.
I think that's exactly right. And so I was curious, do you think it's then Kamala's a placeholder for Biden relief, and is that sustainable?
Yeah, no, there's something different. So look, first I'll agree with both of you guys tonight, but I think the larger point is the third point that I'm going to make. So was there a moment of like relief and ecstatic like reaction because, hey, oh my God, we might win? We were going to lose.
So used to the headlines for 6 months.
Right. It was so depressing. And Biden was such a terrible candidate. And even the ones defending him knew he couldn't speak, right? So they knew it inside. They just wanted to, they were in their loyalist camp. So part of that is definitely right. And then the media had a reaction because, let's keep it real, they want to support corporate politicians. And lately, they've been in love with corporate Democrats. So, but they got mad at Biden because they thought that he lied to them. But more importantly, that he made them lie for him, right? They're like, oh, he's not too old. He's not too old. And then it was revealed that he was too old. And so the media was like bitter at Biden. But when Kamala Harris is around, they're like, all right, a corporate Democrat we like, okay?
She can speak.
Yeah, she can speak. But that goes to the third and most important point. Before, I was a little bit worried about Kamala. I wanted an open convention, not because I didn't think she would be the best candidate, but I was not positive. I certainly wasn't sure, right? And I wanted an open competition. And that's because she was doing a lot of word salads, okay, in the interviews. And so anybody can see that, it's clear as day, right? But now she's not doing it anymore. And so my best guess is that she had anxiety issues, and that's why she was doing that. And right now, her speeches are lucid, clear, good. She's putting.
She hasn't done interviews lately, or you think?
Yeah, no, she should definitely do interviews. The reason she wasn't doing interviews is because they were getting her economic plans ready. And so once she has them, she can go out and defend them. Before, she didn't want to do the interviews without having all of her proposals ready. But the fact is, she's been good on the campaign trail, and she made a Tim Walz pick, which we all like. We like her economic populist positions. So it's not just like, hey, the media likes her, and hey, at least she's not Biden. She's done positive things that have galvanized all of the Democratic voters.
So no, that's helpful to know. And I'm literally here to learn because I'm not in touch with the Democrat base. But do you stick to your position that she should have won it through an open convention?
I mean, for me personally, I'm not going to speak for Cenk. I just think that if you are going to run a campaign on the importance of saving democracy, then you should engage in the democratic process. And I do have a problem of feeling as though she was kind of like foisted on the Democratic voters, but the Democratic voters seem to really love her.
Yeah,
so
I guess my question is when Joe Biden won the primary votes, was she also on the ticket when they voted for the primary candidate?
No.
So that would have made the argument stronger, right? Because they would have said that I think it was just Joe Biden, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, an open convention probably would have been a little bit of a mess.
Yeah,
I mean, and that's the reason why
the process would have just, I mean, right now it would have been the most entertaining television ever, but.
Yeah, so listen, the open convention would have definitely been the right way to go. And for one of the main reasons is what you just said, which is that everybody on the planet would have been watching. Right.
I think it actually would have helped.
It would have definitely helped. It would have helped, and it would have featured a lot more Democratic candidates, and it would have gotten them a lot more hype. It would have gotten a lot more viewers, a lot more free media, earned media, right? So it was the right way to go. But to be fair to Kamala Harris, so the main reason I want an open convention is I wanted a candidate to be able to prove that they can get the most amount of delegates. And she did that within 24 to 48 hours. So she did actually go and campaign. She had a huge advantage. She's the vice president. Biden endorsed her. But if you remember, Pelosi, Schumer, and Obama did not endorse her.
Yeah, do you think that was legit or was that a little bit of a thief?
No, that was legit.
It was? They were waiting to see how it played out?
Yeah, they were. And so since it was legit and she won the delegates without Obama's endorsement or Pelosi's endorsement, I said, well, I mean, that's what I wanted. I wanted her to win the delegates, and she won the delegates. Is it a perfect system? Not even within a million miles. Would we have been better with an open convention? Yes. But after she won the delegates, what would we do at the convention? She already won them. So it kind of ended the conversation.
So I want to go back to Trump because you said that you're not in touch with the Democratic base. I kind of feel the same way about the Republican base, right? Okay, so this is what I want to understand because, you watch the media and sometimes I wonder, am I just buying what they're selling? Is this reality? And what they're selling is that Trump is flailing. Trump is really struggling in campaigning against Kamala Harris, and he's really not helping himself by saying things that turn a lot of voters off, right? Remember, the election comes down to the independent voters, the swing voters. Those are the people who end up being the kingmakers, the deciders of the election. And he can't stop himself from attacking her on her looks, calling her stupid, like things that turn a lot of independent voters off, right? But how does the Republican base feel about it? Like, are they eating it up? Do they love it? Or do they want him to go back to a more economic populist message?
They're definitely resolutely behind him. There is a different way to look at it, though. The question is, will independents decide the election? Because you can also run up the score with your base, which Democrats have proven you could do that in certain elections. And I think you guys would agree, if you have a strong base and you're, for example, getting 60% turnout in a strong county, get 75% turnout, it's actually sometimes easier. But that doesn't, you're right. You do have at least 10 to 15% in the swing states of tilt swing independent voters. I think that the media is misrepresenting. I think Trump's had a fine couple weeks. It hasn't been the best for the campaign, largely because the headwinds have been so dramatic. I think he's at his best when he is making the argument that I am against the establishment that has robbed you. Whether you guys agree with it or not, I know you don't. But I'm saying he's at his best when he makes this argument that the establishment has been robbing you, that this power regime has been lying to you, and I am an insurgent against those things. That is a very popular message. I agree. Yeah, my advice to him is be the renegade you were in 2016, because fair or unfair, I think it's fair to present this argument that the power centers have consolidated against your campaign in record ways, and he has a sentencing hearing in September, which will definitely play into his argument that they don't want me to be president, so they're willing to use unusual ways to try to prevent me from being president. And so, yeah, look, as far as the month of August, I think from his perspective, he's like, I beat one candidate, now I have to beat another. He had the debate with Joe Biden. He saw this thing happening. And he realizes right now that he's going to have, in a compressed time frame, a very, very competitive race, where against Joe Biden, I don't think it would have been very competitive at this time. This convention would have been not good.
Hey, don't scroll away. Come back. Because before the video continues, we just want to urge you to lend your support to TYT. You power our honest reporting. You do it at tyt.com/team, and we love you for it.
Charlie, here's the thing. Again, totally agree that if you run against the establishment, that's your best chance, right? And I think that before, I got a sense that people love Trump for Trump on the MAGA side. Now I get a sense that there's even a splinter group that says, I actually don't love Trump, but I love that he's fighting the establishment, and I hate the establishment so much, I'm gonna vote for Trump, right? But he hurts his cause massively when he's constantly pleasuring donors on stage at rallies. When he says like, oh yeah, I was against electric vehicles, but now Elon Musk is strongly endorsing me, meaning giving me $90 million, right? Yeah, and it might be more than that. So now I love electric vehicles.
I will give Trump some credit. If you listen to his Twitter space, he was they had a back and forth. They were talking more at each other than with each other. But he still says he doesn't believe in the electric vehicle mandate, to be fair, right? He doesn't believe in the subsidies for electric vehicles. So, I mean, I'm sure there's other examples you could list, but look, politics is never going to be pure as much as we'd like it to be. But I think that President Trump has done a very good job of having this economic populist message. And the other message that needs to be talked about, which I think is the Achilles heel of the Democrat Party, where Bernie Sanders used to actually have a great position on, is immigration. And the vast majority of this country thinks that we have too many people coming into the country too quickly in an unvetted way. And the economic populism one, Kamala Harris, I said this on my show, she has put the Republicans on defense. I think her policies are insane, to be honest. We could debate that, but might be not a good use of our time. I think her policies are insane, but they're very popular. They're very popular to say, I'm going to make it easier for you to buy a home. I'm going to, make grocery prices more affordable. I think price controls are a bad idea. But immigration is a very difficult issue for the Democrats. It's very difficult for them to navigate because the body politic thinks that we have too many people coming into this country. And I think President Trump needs to lean into that.
So, sorry, just real last thing on the donors. I hear you on immigration.
No, more examples. I'm happy to.
Yeah. But so, you got Elon Musk, you got the oil companies where he just keeps saying, hey, look, they're giving me money and we should drill, baby, drill, and all this stuff. He just can't help himself from being obvious. But the number one, like the one that I'm curious as to your take, Miriam Adelson. So when he's saying, hey, I gave her the Presidential Medal of Freedom. First of all, she's a donor. Why'd you give her the Presidential Medal of Freedom? That's terrible, right? And that's better than the Medal of Honor. That's a disaster, right? So what do you make of that? Like, are you bothered that he's saying those things?
No, I'm not. I mean, he's pro-Israel. He's pro-Israel, and he's not going to share your views on that. But yeah, I mean, he was pro-Israel throughout his presidency. What you're getting at is he pro-Israel because of donor money? I don't believe that.
And you don't think? Do you think you should have given the Medal of Freedom to Miriam Adelson?
I don't have a strong opinion on that. I think he gave it to her also because of her philanthropy. I could be wrong. I mean,
philanthropy towards Trump.
Look, I mean, Cenk, she did give billions of dollars to like children's hospitals, stuff like that. I mean, while we're at it, I mean, actors and actresses get the Presidential Medal of Freedom, right? Like Tom Hanks got the Presidential Medal of Freedom.
Like legendary ones. And I guess if legendary donors now are getting
give a couple $1 billion to like children's hospitals and stuff, like a couple billion. I mean, we go through the list of people who get the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Sometimes it's not exactly the criteria that you're making it out to.
Right, but the last part of that, first of all, I disagree with all that. I think she got it 100% because she's a donor, but that's okay. But I mean, you guys stake your so much ground on we love veterans, etc. And then when he makes it seem like the Medal of Honor is no big deal, it's a disaster for you, isn't it?
I'm happy to go through it. I actually don't know exactly what he said. So yeah, I'm happy to respond to it. So
I want to pivot to VP picks because it does appear that JD Vance was a bit of a risky pick for Donald Trump. And I get why he chose JD Vance. I get the strategy behind it, trying to appeal to the Rust Belt voters. And also Trump was more confident, thinking that he's running against Joe Biden. Do you think now in retrospect, Trump made a bad decision?
I think it was a great decision. I think that he was maybe expecting a little bit of a honeymoon as a VP, and he received a hurricane. He unearthed some, clips from my show and others about the childless cat stuff, which we could talk about, but I think there's more interesting stuff to discuss. But yeah, I mean, the last couple of weeks, I think he's been on point. He went on the Sunday News show, to his great credit. And Cenk, you pressed me on the donor thing. I'll press you on one thing. You say that Kamala didn't do a sit-down interview because she didn't get her economic plan. I mean, she is the sitting VP. She could take some questions, right?
No, I totally agree.
I mean,
I think she should have been doing the interviews, even if she didn't have all that stuff ready to go.
You got to talk to the press if you're the candidate, right? Even if you don't have your plans together. But to JD's credit, he sat down with 3 Sunday shows on one day, and I thought he handled it masterfully. I thought he handled it beautifully. I could tell you what I'm hearing from Republicans that don't love Trump, because there are Republicans out there that don't love Trump. JD Vance is a very sophisticated, smart, and appealing candidate to many of them that are making it more even comfortable to vote for Trump right now. And yeah, look, we're going to see what ends up happening. We've had a lot of coverage around both VPs. I think Walz was an awful choice. I think Shapiro would have been far better. I'd love to get your thoughts on that. Just looking at it from a Pennsylvania standpoint, we were like, please don't pick Shapiro. Please don't pick Shapiro. And anyway, and I'm sure you guys feel the same about Vance, right? You were like, please pick somebody else or pick Rubio or whatever.
I thought,
but
Vance was an interesting choice.
It's a regional pick where definitely in the Rust Belt. Let me also say this. You guys have written books before and published books, I'm sure. JD Vance has sold over 1 million copies of his book since the VP. Now, that's not about enrichment. That's 1 million voters that are coming in contact with your story. The Netflix special has been top 5 since he's been announced. That is a way to communicate with voters in an asymmetrical, non-traditional way. What we find, though, is that VP picks can hurt you more than they can help you. Yeah. Sarah Palin, right? So as time goes on, I'm confident that JD Vance can now succeed in the one remaining spotlight, which is the VP debate against Walz. I think he's going to be able to hold his own for sure.
Look, much has been made about his pretty offensive comments about couples or women who don't have children. But the media hasn't dug into Vance declaring himself a post-liberal conservative yet. And I think that's going to be a problem for him. Because, I mean, he is rebuffing the notion of a liberal democracy.
Well, or is he rebuffing neoliberalism?
I don't.
Those neoliberalism
is something entirely different. No, I don't like it.
So maybe that's what he's rebuffing.
No, I mean, but post-liberal conservative is not about neoliberalism. I think
you're putting words in his mouth, but he.
He hangs out with the what's the name?
Curtis Yarvin. Yeah, had him on my show, and I've debated with him on my show because he wants something that I don't want. But neoliberalism, as you all know, is unfettered free trade,
right,
adventurous foreign wars, and a very, very aggressive international policy, and also mass immigration. JD Vance definitely disagrees with all 3 of those things. Your question is what? As people dive into that,
I just want to know if you believe that he is in line with the Curtis Yarvins who do not believe in our liberal democracy.
First of all, no, I don't. I mean, I talked to Curtis Yarvin and I disagree with him. You could talk to people all the time. JD Vance's record is very clear, and I don't want to get too down in this rabbit hole, but to understand what he said about the childless cat women was that he was saying that when you have children, that your society is better governed when your leaders are having children when they're not. Otherwise, when they're not having children. I think you guys could agree with that, right?
No. I don't think that's true at all.
So,
can
I just ask the hypothetical?
Hold on.
Good.
Let me
50 childless people and 50 people with families. Mm-hmm. Which group of people would make better decisions for the country the next 100 years?
I think that it is totally wrong to assume that
you don't think that having children makes any bearing on your politics.
No. I don't.
I think
you don't think it does something to you where you think about the next generation? And
I think about the next generation all the time, and I don't have children.
Okay, that's fine.
I think about educating our kids. I'm worried about the fact that so many children in America are illiterate and cannot read. I think about the future of this country all day, every day, right? I don't think having children is the end all be all of whether or not you care about the future of this country. I love this country.
I want you to be able to have kids. I don't want to make this about you, Anna, because I have a lot of respect for you. But I could tell you as someone who has had kids and has not had kids, it does profoundly, deeply change.
Yeah.
And it changes your politics. It changes everything. And that's what JD Vance was saying, is that when a society starts having children, it starts to throw off the wiring of the multi-generational framing of how public policy decisions can be made. We're not going to agree on that, but I think it's rather common sense that when a society ceases to have children, the society ceases to exist.
Okay, so I'm going to answer that. And I want to ask you about Tim Walz in a second. But I want to let our linear audience know, if you're watching on Samsung, Roku, all those places, We're going to continue. We're going to have speeches. We're going to have more interviews. TYT.com. So now it's the show is embedded on the homepage of TYT.com, so you can keep watching there all day, every day. Okay, so now, Charlie.
Yes.
So number one, look, everybody has a different experience. So I have kids, and I have the same exact way of thinking about things before the kids and after the kids.
So that's so interesting. Having kids didn't change your politics at all?
Not 1%.
Or your worldview?
Not 1%. No.
I can vouch for that.
Having kids didn't change you?
No. I mean, I love my kids more than you could possibly imagine.
So you didn't learn something about humanity or like how to pass values down or?
Yeah, no, I've been thinking about that all along.
That's incredible. I'm not doubting it, but like your why didn't change? Like why you fight so hard?
Yeah, no, it didn't at all. Yeah, because I kind of view, I mean, this is really corny, but I view the audience and the voters and the average American as family.
Yeah.
And so
exactly.
I was already looking out for them.
So if this is a gruesome hypothetical, but if a shooter came in, and would you defend your kids first or a stranger's kids, or are they the same?
So, I mean, first of all, that's not going to change your opinion on healthcare. It's not going to change your opinion on
obviously
immigration.
defend your kids first, right?
But of course you're going to defend your kids.
No, but that's the point, is that, so you have an attachment to your kids, so that has changed you.
So of course you have an attachment to your own kids, of course.
Well, that's
of course I attack them first,
right?
No, but it doesn't change my view on the world, on humanity, on politics, on policy.
I mean, I guess,
But if there's a shooting, of course I'm going to cover my kids first. I get it. But by the way, like in the Israel scenario, but I wouldn't say, bomb other people's kids to protect mine.
No, I don't believe that. But my politics is all about protecting my kids.
So, okay,
that's the difference.
Hold on.
And actually, that goes to the
you're about protecting
everyone, right? And so, but that goes to the core, Charlie.
But
and that's why this is such an interesting conversation
between
between conservatives and progressives, because progressive ideology is help someone you don't know,
including non-American citizens.
So, I mean, generally speaking, I want to help the whole world, but of course, you take care of, you've got these circles that you got your family, nation, etc.
When people don't have
but my point is, you guys circle the wagons, and we think about everybody in a way that's empathetic.
But this is the problem: is abstractions like that is how we end up invading Iraq and forget that our veterans are starving because we worry more about foreign adventures than the immediate. And so,
but that was for the military-industrial complex and the oil companies. That wasn't for us or our kids.
Look at Lindsey Graham, people like that have like very weird personal lives. They tend to not care as much about the immediate. They care much more about the foreign and the abstract. But I'm curious though that you don't think that family formation necessarily creates better politics.
Charlie, I want to ask you something. Right. So it's what you believe, right?
No,
so
sorry, I don't mean to talk about it.
No, it's okay. Put that aside for a second. What you personally believe, put that aside, and think about optics and political strategy. Do you at least concede that politically speaking, when it comes to optics, it is not advantageous to accuse childless people in America of not caring about the future of the country because they don't have kids? Well, like that is an incredibly... People find that offensive,
but
right?
It's also a very pro-family sentiment too, saying
I love family.
No, I mean, it's glad.
That's also an accusation, right? Like the idea that if you don't have your own kids, you don't care about family. Like,
well, I'm not saying that. What you're asking me is it smart politics? What he said was a couple years ago before he was the VP, and I think that's important because. First of all, it was even before he was a Senate candidate. But even if he said it today, I would defend the essence of what he was saying, which is that when you have a group of people that are not attached, their public policy decisions are not immediately impacting the things that they cherish the most, and it's much more distant and much more detached and much more foreign, then public policy feels much more like playing Risk than actually managing your home. And I think that's a big mistake. Conservatism at its best is trying to say, forget the abstractions. What's happening in the neighborhood? What's happening at church? What's happening with the family? But yeah, look, I share J.D. Vance's view on these things.
Yeah, so I'll say one last thing, and then I want to ask you about walls because you asked me about walls. So look, I wrote a lot about this in my book, actually, Justice is Coming, because that's my main thesis on the difference between the left and the right. That the right is not indecent. A lot of people on the left think, oh, they're immoral, they're bad. And of course, the right thinks that about the left, etc. No, the right wing can be wonderful, but they have tighter wagons, right?
But do you understand that though? Do you know where that comes from?
Yeah, I totally get where it comes from.
And I get the energy where it's like, I want to save the entire world. I'm like, okay, but like, how about you try to not have 70 shootings a weekend in Chicago before you tell me you're going to fight climate change?
Well, I say
You
we
think- you
could.
kinda see
We
that,
could
right?
no. I definitely
I
say,
mean-
but we could definitely do both, Charlie. It's not
Well, let's
either
go one
or.
first. Let's stop the shootings.
Yeah,
right?
well, look, I would
Or-
love to
or
stop
like
the
50%
shootings.
of
I
kids
would
are childly
love it.
obese
And
in this country, right?
That's what that is, stopping the shootings.
Right.
Both in Chicago and the mass shootings and all of that. And there, us populists, right wing and left wing, agree because we say, like, why are we spending money in Israel? Or you would say Ukraine, right? And Israel has universal health care, they have paid family leave, they have all these things that we would love and we don't have.
An economic
Right.
surplus
And great
in
border policy.
2022.
Yeah, and so, well, we could disagree about that. So
We got you there.
no, I don't.
And
No,
Good,
no,
good
no,
deportations.
no. Yeah, I would argue that we got you on
I
that.
don't want to go too
Israel's incredibly harsh and cruel, et cetera, on those things. But my point is, yeah, I get it. Take care of our families first before you start dropping
Yes.
bombs in the Middle East, et cetera.
We agree.
Oh
on that.
yeah, and so there are gradations of it, but don't hate the others. You know, if they're outside your wagons, they're not necessarily your enemies. They just happen to be in a little bit further circle away from you. And we're trying to, as progressives, we're trying to get you to empathize with people outside your wagons. But okay, so we've discussed that. But I wanted to get back to Tim
You want
Walz.
to talk about Tim Walz?
Yeah. So you said, hey, you think that it's hurt the Democrats. I think it's helped the Democrats tremendously
Definitely.
because he's done economically populist things, and now they're championing economically populist things. And you said earlier, that's popular, right? Housing prices, groceries, et cetera.
Venezuela voted itself into slavery.
So look, we can argue about the policies, and this has nothing to do with Venezuela, and I can prove that, et cetera.
They're close.
No, but no, it's not price controls. She did not. We're definitely against price controls.
So you
she
can,
did
you
not
can tell me what
propose.
she proposed. Then.
She proposed. I'll tell you that real quick. Then
Okay, no, I'm not being sarcastic.
No, not at all. So she said she's against price gouging and left it vague. There's already laws against price gouging. Like, for example, in a natural disaster, in a hurricane, you can't charge $200 for water. So she's saying, hey, I'm going to enforce those laws. By the way, she's not, because first of all, the price gouging happened in like 21, 22, and it's abated already. It's already actually gone down. Second of all, she said grocery stores, that's the wrong target. It's actually consumer goods that were doing the gouging, not the grocery stores, right? All this indicates she doesn't really mean it, and she's not even gonna do it even if we wanted her to do it, right? But she definitely did not say price controls, and none of those policies are price controls. If she said price controls, I guarantee you I would say wrong, that it's the wrong policy,
I mean,
okay?
we just did a segment where we spoke out against the idea of price controls. And I mean, we have fairly recent history to reference, like what happened in the 1970s with price controls and how that led to a disastrous economic situation. So we're not in favor of that. However, there are some policies that she was specific about, especially as it pertains to housing. For instance, Kamala Harris has proposed laws that would ban private equity firms from purchasing up single family homes, right? Which has driven up the price of homes. And what's really interesting is, again, going back to Donald Trump, what really worked for him in 2016 was similar economic messaging is now something that he's speaking out against because Kamala Harris is proposing it.
Well,
Really,
I mean,
it's a
so
really interesting dynamic.
the BlackRock thing, I agree with. Blackstone or BlackRock?
Both.
There's two. Yeah.
Yeah.
Should not be able to buy single family homes at least.
Oh, good, that's great
I've
agreement.
said it repeated. Same
Good.
with foreign countries coming in and
Agreed.
purchasing.
Oh, here,
You
okay.
have a country of ownership, not renting. As far as the $25,000 per home, not a great idea. That will only boost the price of homes.
I agree with you on that.
It's not a great idea.
We need more inventory.
Yes, we need more inventory. So you have to deregulate. You also have to lower the price of energy, which brings up the price of everything. And you guys aren't going to like that, but that includes drill, baby, drill, and bringing down the price of oil and natural gas during this window where we want to try to have a housing boom.
I think we need more nuclear energy.
I agree.
But
Nuclear is a great.
We're already number one in energy
Top
production.
energy producers, but we're also the top energy
Yeah, but-
exporters.
Which,
Is a problem.
well, I think we should continue to be an energy exporter. The price of oil is still too high for too many people. Should get back down to $40, $50 a barrel, which, by the way, that if you want to like stick it to the oil and gas industry, bring the price of oil down. Their margins go down significantly. Secondly, what we're talking about, the private equity on board for that. You should not have major firms coming in and renting back. 1/4 of all home purchases in Q1 of this year were major asset management firms buying homes for the mere purpose of outbidding Americans so they can rent them back. No, I mean, I have no disagreement there.
So oil prices real quick. I mean, you talk about, we should continue being the top oil exporters.
Yes.
That'll, and producing more is going to lower the prices. But remember, we're talking about the OPEC cartel. where other countries are part of this global market. And if Saudi Arabia decides, you know what, we're going to withhold production because we want to make as much money as possible from fossil fuels, they're going to do it. I mean, they've done it before.
No, of course. And the way, by the way, the way you prevent that is you flood the zone with oil. So you produce more oil, and then you become the new Saudi Arabia. So you get to determine what the price of oil is. So
there's a lot of different ways to do that. I understand that philosophy.
And you also
but
prevent war with Iran, which would then spike the price of oil.
We don't need to go to wars in the Middle East.
I'm saying prevent the war with Iran.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah, because you go to 150 a barrel if you have war with Iran.
Yeah, and I'm scared to death that they're going to go to war now on behalf of Israel. And then we're going to have $150 gas prices. And so that's a very complicated issue. A lot of things that drive supply and demand in oil. But the reason that I'm not in favor, like for example, $30 billion in subsidies still to this day for oil companies, oil and gas companies. Why? Why are we giving $30 billion of taxpayer money?
Or are they subsidies?
A combination of subsidies and tax credits. And so they don't need tax credits. They're the most profitable corporations in the world.
So can you explain in greater detail? Is that for startup costs? Is that, because I've heard lots of mixed opinions on it. It's easy to say $30 billion. What specifically is that?
Yeah, so they have about $15 billion to incentivize production. And
do you think we should get rid of that?
Yeah, because they don't need it. They already have trillions of dollars in incentives to do production, to do distribution, to do all of those things.
I'll disagree on that. What's the second part then?
But no, wait, Charlie, you can't disagree on that. Capitalism is about profit maximization, and they maximize profit. They do it really, really well. We don't need to give them our money on top.
For sure, but the thought process was we'd rather have our explorers, our producers explore than Qatar or Saudi Arabia, right? So we want to try to make it easier to drill here, and offering tax benefits in the production side creates American jobs, American financing.
The oil and gas is already under our soil. So when
but it's very capital intensive, as you all know. And there's no guarantee when you drill, you're going to have your profits back in the next 8 to 10 years.
Yeah, but there's no guarantee I'm going to get profits at TYT, and they're not subsidizing me $30 billion a year.
With all due respect, though, TYT doesn't keep the entire American economy going.
Well, agree to disagree.
Okay, fair enough. So, but let me ask you though. So to be consistent though, I say yes, subsidies for oil and natural gas because it's 70, 80% of our energy. You would say though, yes, subsidies for solar panels and wind and for electric vehicles.
So the subsidies are only for nascent industries when there's an overall need to get that industry up and off the ground, up and running for national security reasons.
Do you think that solar panels are nascent?
At this point, I think they're on the edge of nascent still.
How about electric vehicles?
Yeah. Well, now you can make an argument that they are not.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Right. And so see, those are good conversations to have.
That's what we're having. Right. Just make sure.
Right. Exactly. But for the oil subsidies, a lot of them are 100 years old. The oil industry is not a nascent industry. And yes, we do care about climate change. And yes, fossil fuel is destroying the planet.
We're not going to get the climate.
So that's the thing we disagree on.
The other 15 billion of what? So production, which is all American jobs, but the second part, yes.
And then distribution, which is crazy. I mean,
how do we subsidize that?
So look, you'd have to get into all the details of 1,000, like not 1,000, but literally dozens of laws that some are left from 100 years ago, some are recent, et cetera. But Charlie, these are all funnel money back to their donors. Like we get into all these wars because of defense contractors. People think it's mainly because of Israel. No, it's mainly because of the defense contractors. And when we do
oil or defense contractors.
So I'm saying all the subsidies. We do subsidies for all of these different types of donors.
If you have a principle, we don't want subsidies for oil and gas, that's fine. It's $30 billion in a $6 trillion budget. The defense budget's $1 trillion a year, right?
My God, let's see. Hey, that's interesting.
Which is
so you think we could pare down the defense budget?
100%, of course.
Okay, good.
I've said that consistently.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I mean, by the way, why do we have troops still in Iraq and Syria? Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I
don't
hear
know
you on
Syria,
that.
But
and they can't account for half their budget. It's an outrage.
We spent $200 billion on this Ukrainian war effort, which was one of the biggest mistakes, I think, in American foreign policy in recent memory.
So I want to end on the last couple of things, especially on agreement. But before we get to the agreement, I did mention walls and economically populist policies, and that led to this conversation. Do you see why we think that's a good conversation for us?
I guess, we look at it completely different. Again, immigration is a hot button issue that Democrats tend to not win on right now. He did give taxpayer funded tuition for illegals in the state of Minnesota. Secondly, he has no restrictions on abortion whatsoever. which there's some horrific stories that have come out because of that. So it re-enters abortion as being a little bit murkier, because right now it's a political winner for Democrats, and it's a little bit murkier for Democrats with no restrictions at all. That is not popular with the American people, just like my position of no abortion is not popular with the American people. And I'm willing to admit that.
Yeah,
Hold on, though.
No, I haven't.
I just want him to finish.
Okay. When it comes to the abortion issue and no restrictions at all, which by the way,
It's not realistic.
my
It's not
view-
going to happen anytime soon. Just work with it.
yeah, my view on it is I'm against a late-term abortion of a healthy pregnancy. However, I want to ask
Good for you for saying.
do you genuinely believe that women who get pregnant want to remain pregnant, go through the hormonal changes, go through the body changes, go through the torture of being pregnant, and then decide, like literally in the last week, oh, I think I'm going to have an abortion?
That's a great question. So instead of an abortion, they should be given a cesarean section.
Oh, but that's not what I'm asking you. I'm asking you, do you genuinely believe that women are like
First of all, the numbers show that there are a couple thousand late-term abortions every year, but it's
of healthy,
a tiny percent.
healthy pregnancies?
well that healthy is very difficult to ascertain
Interesting.
because
Okay.
for example, if you have preeclampsia, you're technically not a healthy pregnancy, but 1 out of 3 pregnancies in America is preeclamptic. You can easily deliver a baby via cesarean section if you're preeclamptic.
What percentage of those couple thousand late-term abortions are done due to that condition?
I don't know the number, but the point is that instead of aborting the baby, which is not medically necessary, you can still deliver the baby. That's the argument
But
against
that's
late-term
Roe v.
abortion.
Wade, right? Like Roe v. Wade was first 2 trimesters. That's Kamala Harris's policy. The 3rd trimester, you do not have a right.
Well, but
to an
9
abortion.
states do have no restrictions. New Mexico, Colorado,
Yeah,
Washington, Oregon, Minnesota,
I
Massachusetts.
agree with Roe. I agree with Roe.
Yes.
Okay, fair, and that's a step in the right direction, and that's why I say Walz brings that back into a place where he has no restrictions whatsoever in Minnesota, which is where you guys are in. So that's where the final point on the Walz thing though is the Floyd stuff and the mismanagement of the riots. And he did wait 24 hours to deploy the National Guard. There was a lot of suspicion around there. A lot of people think of Minneapolis as a burning, looted city in their recent memory, and he has to answer for that. And his answers have been clumsy. And his wife has had this weird clip where she's like, I smelled the tires and I rolled down my window, like very strange stuff. And so looking as an outsider, as a conservative, we see this as like an all-you-can-eat buffet line of very radical, unpopular positions that have now been introduced to the ticket.
Yeah, so I can debate every one of those with you, but I think that the country's talking more about his economically populist positions, and that's winning ground for us and not.
Well, that's interesting. It might win ground with younger voters. The question is, will it win ground with baby boomers who tend to be very skeptical of heavy-handed, big government economic policies? And I don't think so. I don't think so. When they hear price gouging, or as it's portrayed, price controls, that's like no go for baby boomer voters, which interestingly, Joe Biden was doing better with. And maybe now Donald Trump stands to gain from there. But younger voters, I agree with you. A 25-year-old voter will be, oh yeah, give me free stuff. Like, yeah, give me a house, or, make it easier for me to buy a house. Of course, that's more attractive.
So, yeah. So again, I could debate all of like the framing, et cetera. And look, Trump didn't call out the National Guard on the Floyd issues, and then they're not saying give us a free house. And you agree with some of their policy proposals. Yeah.
Free stuff socialism, but also like make it easier to buy a house.
Right.
Sounds
so.
Of course it is.
Okay, so look, I love that. I think that's a huge win for us.
But do I think it's economically good for the country? Of course not.
Okay, but let's end on agreement if we can, right?
We can try our best.
Okay, now I know we already agree on this. I want to see what we can do about it, Charlie, and I want it to be real, right? So post-election, because pre-election, nothing's going to happen, right? But whether Kamala Harris wins or Donald Trump wins, you don't want private equity buying up our homes. We don't want private equity buying up our homes. And I think that's actually quickly going to be the #1 issue in the country. Whenever I go and talk to real people that are not in politics, they're like, oh, God damn it, the housing prices, right? And the American dream is slipping away from all of us. So is there a way that we can work from populist right and populist left on this critical issue and pressure either the Democratic or the Republican president to actually deliver on this?
I think it's a very simple bill. If you have assets under management over $100 billion, you should not be able to buy single family homes. Now, $100 billion
totally
sounds, it's actually not that much in the private equity. We're talking about $10 trillion in black, just so we're clear. Like 100x that. Because some people say, oh, make it 10 billion. Like you got to have to align where you can still, have appetite there. But you think about it, what's happening, and I will say, housing prices aren't only going up because of that. You're flooding the zone with a lot of cheap money, and so money needs to find a home. And then you have one-off investors that aren't BlackRock and that aren't Blackstone that are also bundling homes, 3, 4, 5 homes, because they need to try to find a home for their, they need to try to find a place for their capital. But yes, I would love to see some agreement, and I would work with anybody on that, because my heart is not to have a nation of renters. I think when people own property, so that's another, so we get one other family thing. If you have 50 people that own property or 50 people that don't own property, I think we all agree the 50 people that own property,
yep,
they have better politics. Do we agree?
Well,
or at least they're better citizens?
No, but I want them to own homes. No, Charlie,
or they have skin in the game?
No.
They do have more skin in the game. That is true.
No, guys, but
they've poured their entire life savings.
I've been a renter. I've been a renter. I've been a homeowner. None of my policies changed.
No, you never changed.
No. It's not that I never change. And in fact, when I do change, I tell people, I go, hey, listen, I was convinced of X, Y, or Z, but for policy reasons, not because I personally went through that.
I don't know if I would. I think that owning a home, you care more about property taxes.
That's definitely true.
Right? You care more about the crime in your neighborhood and if it impacts, right? Do you agree?
No, I was a renter twice and I moved out because there was literally blood by my doorstep. But so I cared about security. I didn't want to die.
Don't you think you take better care of, say, unit if you own it versus you rent it?
Yes.
Sure. Yeah,
okay.
There's details like that.
Behavior does change. And
around the property, but not necessarily about policy.
I know, but then policy that says you get a tax deduction for home improvement, which you do.
Yeah, and so we can debate that policy.
I'm just saying,
but keep going.
I'm trying to say, though, that the deeper point, that owning property makes a better country, and renting, I think, creates very cynical, radical, nihilistic people. Because
here's the point we can agree on.
Because let me look, the final point. This is not debatable. Is that if you're paying all of your money for rent that disappears and doesn't go into an equity bank, then you're very bitter after 10 years.
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
Yeah. That's exactly right. So whether it's the bitterness or not, the most important thing is you're not building wealth.
Exactly.
And it's not your asset. You're paying out rent instead of bringing in assets.
Towards the entire political project. That's my point.
Yes.
And you become indentured servants, right? You become serfs, right?
And then you view the world as you're like, nothing works for me. It's all rigged. And I think when you own a home, you're like, well, at least I'm working my tail off, but that $400 of my mortgage payment is still just kind of going in the piggy bank. One day I can access that equity. So yes, I think we should do everything we can to increase home ownership. I would like to do it in market-based principles. In addition, we should not all of a sudden have a couple billionaire oligarchs come in and steal away the American dream from the next generation's young people.
Agreed with you.
Yeah, and ironically, you asked me famously, and we talked about it last time. You said you live like a capitalist every day, right? And so the irony of that is that I'm a capitalist, and
so you live like a capitalist.
I live like a capitalist every day.
You're like owning homes and flipping them and renting them back.
No, you're definitely not doing anything.
Okay, but so my point though there is that in order to protect capitalism and the free markets, I'm gonna agree with market-based ideas, but our real enemy is corporatism.
Yeah.
Corporatism then says we don't want a free market. We want monopolies. We want control of your
system to our advantage.
Would you agree corporatism and also government regulators, government policy that hurts the small from achieving something big?
Of course. Yeah.
So we have agreement there.
Yeah. All right. So we hope that whoever wins, we'll all unite together.
I'm very clear that I think that Harris has she has a slight odds right now to win.
Yeah.
Slight.
All right. There you go. Another honest conversation. I love it. Charlie, thank you for joining us from Turning Point USA.
Talk to you soon.
Yeah, we appreciate it, brother.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. We really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.